Alright, so today is motovlog number 2, the second only ever motovlog that I've ever produced here on YouTube on my motorcycle channel. And today I'm going to take my 2007 Dyna Street Bob and I'm going to show you kind of the neighborhood all the way from Bailey, Colorado to Pine, Colorado, which is the opposite direction of downtown Bailey, which is another pretty much the closest town, which would be pretty interesting. And as a matter of fact, before we start, I just finished the beginner's motorcycle training course. It was a 3-day course, and they said you should always mount a Harley Davidson from the left side. And kind of the weird thing on my bike is look at how far the sissy bar rack, all the packs on my sissy bar rack come all the way to the handlebar. You only have a little bit, so in order to get through here, you have to actually grab the handle and then try to throw your leg over. And for some reason on my bike, it just seems so much easier to kind of throw a leg over from the high side and jump on it. I know I've actually seen a lot of people write in comments. They're like, hey, you're mounting your bike from the wrong side, which is pretty funny. All right, so let's see here. That was weird. We kind of had a little key sign there that I've never seen before. So if you actually watched my last vlog right at the beginning when I started out with my motorcycle, the weird thing is I was just letting it idle. Let me see if I can close this garage door. I have the thing in my pocket here. I had so I'm gonna try to bring this camera down just a little bit here so you can see a little bit more of everything that's going on, so it's not kind of pointing at the sky. But when I first started my vlog the other day, it was kind of weird. I was kind of up at the top of this driveway, which is kind of a crazy driveway, and I pulled over and stopped, and the engine died. It kind of sounded like it backfired. It kind of popped into the air cleaner. So I started kind of poking around on my bike, and sure enough, when I changed the spark plugs, I forgot to gap the spark plugs, and come to find out the default gap on these spark plugs is way off compared to where they're supposed to be with a Harley Davidson. They were right in the really super small gap on those spark plugs, and it's supposed to be almost like twice as big. I had to really open up the spark plugs, and I'm pretty sure that's what was causing my bike to stall and kind of backfire there. And they say if you have the proper gap, especially if you have too small of a gap, a lot of times you won't have as much power. So I'm thinking I might have significantly more power on this Dyna versus, you know, gapping it incorrectly on those spark plugs. But I switched out the spark plugs, and the old ones looked really good. You know, if you actually look at how spark plugs are supposed to look, it was almost like picture perfect compared to what you'd see in like a textbook example of the perfect running engine. So it looks like, I'm not burning oil or anything like that, which is good. It's the first time I really took a look at spark plugs after I ran them for a while. Oh, in this street, I'm like, oh, right in the middle of these, right where the kind of the rain washes it out. You get those little grooves that go across the middle of the road, and then you hit those, and your whole head kind of rattles, which is kind of crazy. Which is the weird thing about this is when I lean back on my sissy bar, it seems like I get a lot more kind of vibration in my helmet compared to if I kind of sit up away from the sissy bar. It seems like a lot of the vibration from the road is transferred to the sissy bar up to my helmet. I was gonna wave, but I don't know if I can wave and slow down on this gravel at the same time. Oh, that was like, I better not on that one. That's kind of challenging. So yeah, I've been getting out every day, just kind of riding around. Today it's an absolutely beautiful day. Not quite as hot as yesterday. It's pretty much the ideal temperature. This is about as hot as it gets up here in the mountains of Colorado, about 75 degrees, which is absolutely fantastic for riding motorcycles in our very short summers that we have, just a few months. And this, I always kind of freak out about this. Look at all the potholes and the sand and the gravel and everything on the road right here. That's terrible. Let me tell you, if you don't know the roads, you definitely have to be careful, because there's a lot of traps. Probably the biggest thing is that the potholes, like that one right there, the gravel, and the wildlife that just kind of pop up out of nowhere. And of course the cars kind of coming around the corners. Usually there's not that many cars up here though. But yeah, you get on some of these gravel roads, it can be kind of tricky. It's always tricky kind of starting out, like right there in the sand on the road. So here's my mailbox. If we get the mail, we have to drive all the way over here. Here's a huge pothole right here. That would suck up a motorcycle. Let me tell you, you definitely don't want to hit that one driving around up here. And it is absolutely beautiful. It's like the perfect temperature. And one of the things that really surprised me, so I haven't rode motorcycles for like 20 years, and I started back up again. As a matter of fact, I bought this bike last fall, and it's been in my garage all winter. I've been working on it, went through and upgraded all the lighting to LEDs and everything. Replaced the front engine mount, was completely shot, and I just kind of went through and did some maintenance and some upgrades on it. And I've only been riding for about 2 months here since I've had this bike. And kind of the first thing that struck me riding this motorcycle, which I never really noticed before, but it's the smells. You can actually see, you can smell the smells. They seem like they're a lot more intense than you'd actually see like in a car. You know, in a car sometimes you can smell a little bit of the smells, but in a motorcycle it seems like it's just so much more intense. Like right now I can smell the blacktop. It is really super intense, where you wouldn't smell it. Now I can smell some hay, kind of like fresh cut like grass or something like that. And just like all the smells just seem a lot more intense on a motorcycle compared to a car, which is pretty wild. It's something I really didn't expect. And you can actually smell, like, you know, if someone hits, you know, like something, like kills an animal on the side of the road, it's like a really intense smell from that. Or if like someone's cutting some wood, you can smell the fresh cut wood. Just everything is just so much more intense as far as the smells. And it's kind of weird. You actually you're driving down the road with your dog, and the dog always wants to stick his nose out the window, and now you know why. It's because of the smells on the road that you normally wouldn't smell if you're in a car, which kind of blows me away, just the difference between being out in the wind versus being in a car, where it kind of masks all the smells. And boy, that wind's starting to pick up right there. So when I first started riding, yeah, this road, it seemed a little scary at first, especially when that wind would really blow, but it's, you know, doing it every single day, every day, you definitely get used to it. And that wind's not too bad. I saw the wind was kind of picking up when I left, but it's not too bad. Where it gets really bad is if you get on the highway and you're going really fast and then the wind blows. Like the other day I was going 70 on the highway, and there was like probably 30 to 40 mile an hour gusts blowing sideways. Almost completely blew me out of the lane when I was going like 70 miles an hour, which is kind of crazy. So that's, I'd say, you know, as far as everything that I've ridden through in the last 2 months, probably wind is definitely the scariest. I've driven through rain, I've driven through hail, I've driven through cold. Probably the coldest temperature I've driven in is 34 degrees. And I geared up, in fact I was pretty warm at 34. I just went down to the highway and back at 34 degrees at night, in the middle of the night. I had my heated vest and my jumpsuit, and I had these gloves. These gloves are pretty amazing. I actually drive with them in the summer, they're nice and cool, and then in the winter, I'm actually surprised how much they keep my hands warm in the winter. And as a matter of fact, I could probably leave a link to these gloves underneath my video. I think they were only like $38, really nice leather gloves. which is kind of the one thing I've noticed about these gloves though, is on Amazon they say they're waterproof, and I drove an hour and a half in the rain with these gloves. Let me tell you, they got completely soaked. These are definitely not waterproof unless you put something on them. And I actually went back and I put some waterproofing on them, so hopefully if I get caught in the rain again, I can test them out and see if they're completely waterproof. But yeah, I can still smell that blacktop, really intense blacktop. And this has been, I'd say this is probably the first really warm day. Yesterday was really warm too. These are probably the first two really warm days of the year up here in Bailey, Colorado. As a matter of fact, yesterday I think it got up to like, it was like 83 degrees or something like that. And that's pretty much the hottest it's ever got. As a matter of fact, the first 5 years that I was up here, it never got above 80 degrees in the summer. And then I think it was maybe like 2 or 3 years ago, it got up to 83. And that was the first time that I've ever seen it above like 80 degrees. It just barely hits 80 degrees up here in the mountains. But kind of the weird thing is you'll start out here at 80 degrees, and then you'll go down to the bottom of the mountain. And, you know, if you go all the way down south to like down to Pueblo or something like that, like 2 hours away, 2.5 hours, it'll actually be like 100 degrees down in Pueblo. And then the other thing is so for example, if you went all the way down there and it's 100 degrees, and then you come back at night, potentially that same very night up here in the mountains, it could be down in like the 40s or sometimes even down in the 30s, which is pretty crazy. And most of the stuff I have in my sissy bar bag is all like cold weather gear and rain gear and stuff like that, to kind of protect me from all the different weather changes up here. Because let me tell you, you can leave when it's really nice and perfect, and by the time you get about an hour or two out and then by the time you turn around and start heading back, you could be in for some really different weather. Sometimes it can really change really super fast up here in the mountains of Colorado, which you have to really be prepared for. So here is kind of like the closest civilization here. They've been building a lot of stuff here. They put in a Dollar General. They're putting in storage units back there, and then they put in a little coffee shop and a liquor store. It used to be just a loaf and jug, and this was just one big empty lot right here. And they've since built all this just in the last few years, which is kind of wild. Alright, so this is 285, Highway 285 right here. And if you go right from here, you'll actually go down to downtown Bailey, Colorado. That's where we went last time, down to the right. And there's pretty much nothing down there. There's not even a stoplight. There's really just like a post office and a hardware store. And there's a couple restaurants. There's a Chinese restaurant, and that's pretty much it. Then if you go left, you go completely opposite to the next closest town over this way, which is Pine, Colorado, which is, I think it's even smaller than Bailey. There's absolutely nothing around here, hardly at all, which is kind of wild. And in order to get to like a Safeway or something like that, you have to go way down, you know, halfway down the mountain, which is pretty far. It seems like I have a little bit more power now that I changed those spark plugs out. But boy, that wind is really whipping. It's kind of crazy on the highway. So speed limit here on this highway is 55, which is just right at the edge of my comfort zone after driving about 2 months on this motorcycle. Especially with that wind whipping, it can get a little bit tricky. But the funny thing is you start going like, you know, like 50, 55, and it seems like it's okay, you know, most of the time, until you hit some really strong wind or you hit some rain or some hail, and then, then it can be a little bit treacherous, I would say. And then the other thing is you have to kind of know your bike and trust it around these corners, going pretty fast, and then know the road, make sure there's no gravel or anything in here, which is kind of always freaks me out. driving a motorcycle, you're always looking for gravel and potholes and stuff, especially going on the highway. And in the car, it's so much more stable. People just kind of blow you by in a car, and you're like kind of jumping around in the wind on a motorcycle, which is kind of crazy. Ooh, getting up to 65. This is like, yeah, a little bit fast for my tastes, going 65. The kind of funny thing is as a matter of fact, I was thinking about maybe doing that for my next video, is doing fear of driving fast. You know, like going like, 65 or 75 on the highway. And as a matter of fact, I was actually talking to some people that they were saying it took them a whole year to get to the point where they could go 75 on the highway with their motorcycle, just because of the fear factor and the kind of the wind and everything kind of blowing you around, which is, let me tell you, you definitely have to get used to it. And I actually went on a really long trip down to Pueblo. It was within 2 days. I think I drove about 9 hours. And at one point, there's a biker. And at one point, I was driving about 2 hours on 65 mile an hour roads, 2 hours straight. And the first time I drove it, I was pretty anxious. I'd say almost terrified of driving 65 going down that road. And I was like, all right, I'm just gonna drive. There was like no traffic at all. I was like in the middle of nowhere. And I was like, all right, I'm just gonna drive 65 for 2 hours and get used to it. And believe it or not, it seemed like after the first hour, I started getting used to it. But I don't know. I think it just takes a while to get used to being that fast on a motorcycle. So we're coming up to Pine, Colorado, which is right around the corner. So we have Golden Pine Restaurant, we have Cruise Inn, a little place you can eat there. Let's see, what else do we have in Pine, Colorado? We have a stoplight. I'm actually going to turn at the stoplight here. We have a little gas station there. We have Crossroads, which is a little kind of a bar and grill over here. There's also a little thrift store there. Looks like they have pizza and wings over there. That actually sounds pretty good. But yeah, this light and that store right there, that's the country store, and that's the restaurant. So this is downtown Pine, Colorado. That's pretty much it. I can bring you down. I'll show you the hardware store and the post office. Show you around the quarter-mile strip of the town here, which is kind of crazy. So this is pretty much it. The pub and grill. Looks like there's a fitness center. Oh, the Bean and Bakery moved in instead of the thrift store. Interesting. Sometimes these businesses just kind of go in and out really quick. And then on the left, you have the post office. And then on the right, the hardware store. So this is the post office over here. And this is more lumber. So you have kind of a lumber store over here, which is pretty much the biggest thing. This is big time for Pine right here, which is pretty crazy. All right, so that is Pine, Colorado, in the middle of nowhere where I live, up here in the mountains. That's pretty much it. So that's pretty much it. I'm just gonna head back. So thanks for watching, guys, and I will see you in the next video if I can actually turn around here. All right, guys, see you later.